In the West, people can mostly develop and hold their own beliefs and express them freely. It is rare that people fear for their safety just for speaking their minds. These liberties, known as freedom of conscience and freedom of speech, were part of the foundation that helped develop modern societies as we know them. How did these ideas originate, and how have they evolved over time? Welcome to Libertarianism.org's Learning Hub, an introduction to free conscience and free speech.
Freedom of conscience is the right to hold one's own religious and philosophical beliefs without fear of persecution. In the West, it was developed by the Stoics and further refined by Christian thinkers. They believed in the sanctity of an inner self, capable of finding truth through right reason. Free from external coercion, this inner self could discern the principles of natural law. You can explore this more in our next Learning Hub video on natural law. Free speech is the right to express ideas or sentiments without censorship or repercussions, especially threats of violence or intimidation.
These two interconnected ideas of liberty, while widely recognized in the West, have historically been under threat. The struggle to establish and recognize these rights stretches over the past 2,000 years.
In the 5th century BC, the Greek city-state of Athens established one of the first democratic states in history. Athenians believed democracy would not survive without isagoria, which is the equal right to speak freely in assemblies, even when the ideas expressed were unpopular. In other words, Athenian leaders considered open debate necessary. Though many were excluded from full participation, this principle helped develop freedom of speech as a necessary condition for a healthy democracy. The Roman Republic imitated Athens' tradition. The statesman and philosopher Marcus Tullius Cicero understood that one important aspect of liberty consisted in the ability to speak one's mind without fear. According to the Roman ideal of libertas, a life without arbitrary domination, the state cannot silence citizens for criticizing its government. With the fall of the empire, these classical ideas were lost for centuries.
While some figures like Martin Luther and John Calvin made efforts to challenge religious orthodoxy, freedom of speech and freedom of conscience were suppressed for generations across Europe.
After centuries of illiberal governments and constant war, in 1644, John Milton wrote one of the greatest defenses of free speech and conscience that would influence a positive change. Surrounded by the religious conflict and censorship of the Puritan Revolution, Milton wrote, "Give me the liberty to know, to utter, and to argue freely, according to conscience, above all liberties." To Milton, without freedom of conscience and speech, there would be no confrontation with error, which is essential to get to any truth. Milton was also wary of the abuse of power and warned that no man could possibly be trusted to regulate human discourse. Our ability to reason, he argued, is what gives us freedom to choose, which in turn makes us morally responsible. To know truth through coercion, he stated, was without merit.
Until the 18th century, discussions around freedom of conscience and freedom of speech revolved around religious and not political issues. These changed when Thomas Gordon and John Trenchard wrote a series of letters criticizing the British government, known as Cato's letters.
Throughout their letters, they argued that these freedoms were natural rights, inherent to human nature, and the role of the government should be to protect them. Without free speech, those in charge will silence dissent and abuse power. If liberty is to survive, we must be able to criticize our government.
These letters, widely read by American colonists, became the cornerstone of revolutionary political thought and framed free speech as a necessary element for a free republic. Founding fathers like Benjamin Franklin and John Adams reference these letters across their writings, and we can see their clear influence in later legislation.
For example, in 1791, a series of amendments to the Constitution were ratified, the first of which reflected the importance of freedom of conscience and expression. Congress shall make no law that prohibits the free exercise of religion, speech, press, or assembly. By making it a priority, the founders made it clear that no free society can exist without the protection of free conscience and free speech.
In conclusion, freedom of conscience is the right to hold our own beliefs, while respect for free speech means we can express these beliefs freely, without restrictions or fear of repercussions. Without these rights, modern societies, like we know them, would not exist. Tyranny and coercion would be the norm. Do you think freedom of conscience and freedom of speech are under threat today? What are the consequences of eroding these rights? We invite you to read through our resources at Libertarianism.org for answers to these questions and much more. And if you like this video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.